All right, everybody evacuate.
Thank you, Julie.
Everybody drop the kids off the pool. All right.
Est-ce que vous avez fini? Finir.
Yeah. Okay. What were we talking about? Oh, good, you came back. I was thinking, man, she sat through that whole thing and just decided this guy's a
I was
loser.
getting some sun. It's cold in here.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
right?
Oh, I love it.
Well, they give me this room because I usually fill up stadiums. So. Okay. We need to talk about limiting things and for eaches. So we're going to do pairs and for eaches. Now, the new editors will shoot up this thing that says, hey, or the PowerShell Studio and the other, professional editors will shoot up these warnings when you use the aliases for these things. Say, hey, your code will be more readable if you use the commandlet name instead. Yeah, but who wants to type where-object when I can say question mark? Right? So let's start by limiting something. And this concept of a loop is kind of hard, the syntax is kind of hard for people to understand at first. Some people get it right away and go, oh yeah, okay. I had one guy, I taught him for an hour every day, 5 days a week, and it took him 2 months to understand the concept. But he finally got it and then never forgot it again. And so y'all are gonna fall somewhere in that spectrum, right? Hopefully everybody is gonna, but this is an extremely important concept in PowerShell. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, right? Okay, I'm gonna write the code first. But first let's say, okay, let's look at Windows. Okay, good. So I wanna see only a subset of services. So I'll say get service, and I'm gonna pipe that to a where clause. Just like in SQL, you're gonna say where something equals something, right? So I'm gonna say where dash object. That's the last time I'll ever do that. Now I'm just gonna say where. Now next, you're gonna have a set of curlies. The curlies are what define what happens inside that where clause. Because a where clause is a loop, and I'm gonna explain this in intricate detail. But first, I do my curlies. I always do my open and closes and then go back inside so I don't forget anything. So now I go back inside and I say $_ dot, what did we say we wanted to see the display name? So I'll say display name, and I could say all kinds of things. I could say equals, I could say not equals, I could thing, right? But here I'm gonna say match, where it matches Windows. Display name matches Windows. And, oh yeah, display name. So you see all these display names have Windows in them, right? Or I could just say Windows Audio. Windows Audio. That's better, right? Okay. I'm going to clear the screen real quick. And I'm going to go up and let's talk about this because this is going to be a long talk. I guess I should grab the flagpole as a pointer. Okay, so we all know get service. What does get service do?
Lists all your services that are available or running. Call the service on the box.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I told you I wanted you to think about things in a specific way, right?
So it's the get method for the object service.
No.
It's not the get method.
What does it do? I didn't ask you what it is. What does it do?
It runs the,
Nope.
It filters.
No. It outputs a service object, a service controller object. Think in terms of objects. I promise you, you'll go a lot further. What does directory do? DIR.
Gives you your directory.
I'm sorry?
It gives you your directory of
No.
whatever.
It lists
I
what is
questioned
in the
that.
No.
directory.
It outputs
Oh, I see
file
what you're
system
saying.
objects.
Okay.
What's in there? We
Yeah.
don't give a shit, right? I mean, as an end user, we do, or we wouldn't be doing it, right? But from a coding standpoint, think about things as objects. Okay. What does get process do? The command that get process, what does it do?
An output.
The process.
Process
Process
object. Very good. Whether it's empty or full, doesn't matter. It gives you that object, right? Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna take this service.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
From a coding perspective, is it returning an object, is it returning a collection of objects?
It's returning an object with a collection of properties. But the difference is really subtle, so you can think of it either way.
Okay.
But it is gonna be a single object with a collection of items in it, and each one of those items is an object, so 6.5, right?
Fair enough.
Okay, so I've got my service object, and I'm gonna pipe that to my where clause. My where clause has curlies. Everything inside of there is gonna be the where clause. $_. This is the big one. That is a built-in variable in PowerShell, and it is what we call the current iteration variable. The way to understand this is that, again, this where clause is a loop, right? We all know how to write SQL cursors, right? More or less? No? Kinda? Okay, never mind. So, and this is gonna feed right into your question, actually. So let's say I get back five services, right? In my list, in my object list. It's gonna send those one at a time to the where clause. And it's gonna say, this first one, does the display name match Windows Audio? If so, send it through. If not, drop it and go to the next one. Okay? So this $_ represents the current object in that loop. Because remember what I said, how do you call properties? With object.property name, right? Object.property name.
Oh, okay.
So whatever type of object that turns out to be, it doesn't matter, right? It's always gonna be the same. It's gonna be object.property, right? So this represents that $_ represents the entire object. It has all of the properties, right?
Kind of like
If,
that.
however, if I were to put that select object that we did before, right? Then it would have only the properties that made it through. Right? Only the ones you selected, because now you've got that object with only like 2 or 3 properties in it. And those are the ones that you would have access to here, right? But this represents the entire thing. So all of those properties that are in your get process, you can call here. Okay? Perfect. Now, PowerShell does something very evil, and I haven't seen him in a long time, but I've always sworn I would punch Jefferson over in the face for this. Because here I get my list, match is a regex operator. What this says is show me any service that has Windows Audio anywhere in the title, anywhere in the display name, right? So it's regex. It's the same as doing percent Windows Audio percent in SQL, right? But let's say I want to do an equals. I only want to get Windows Audio. EQ. Oh, really? C# does double equals. TypeScript does like double or triples. Some of them do triples, right? You had to go with -EQ and -NE and -LT and -GT and so on and so on, right? Seriously? So the reason this is evil is because you're gonna say where display name equals Windows Audio, and it's gonna take you 3 days to find the mistake because it's not this way in any other programming language I've ever seen. And you're gonna go from T-SQL, and you're gonna come in here and you're gonna write the same thing in PowerShell, and why the hell isn't it honoring my filter? What the hell's wrong with you, right? I still do it sometimes. I did it actually just a couple months ago, and it did take me about half a day to find it. I was like, and when it hit me, I was like, oh, Jesus. So you will make that mistake, and you will make it repeatedly. I can't help you with that. We still have assignment operators though, so I can set a property equal to something with just an equals. But they should at least, like, they did so many other things like C# and they turn around and do something stupid like this, right? So, this shouldn't come up with anything because I don't have anything Windows. Oh, I do have a plan and actual Windows Audio. There you go. So, I get one service back from that because I said equals. Now I can also say, right, we're not equals. Not equals. I'm gonna get everything else, huh? See how that works?
So how long do you try using bangs in there for not equals? And
Oh, you know, I've used both bang equals and the double beaks many times. You have something?
Yeah, actually.
You got to be a little more something, man, because it looks like you're waving. It looks like you're
go like
wiping
that.
your
Well, I
forehead.
do actually have a question. You can answer yes or no. In lists like a match in a list, but not an equals within a list. If you pass in an array as an argument, like dash
Okay, I'm going
dash-
to stop you right there because I already don't know what you're talking about.
Sorry. You want to find multiple things in a list that are like, I want to find everything in that list that's Windows, but also bit.
Yeah.
Like Windows, like bit.
Yeah. So I'm glad you said that because I was going to get into that and I forgot.
Okay.
It's the same way that it is in something like C#. So I'm going to say where, let's go back to equals. Yeah. And then you just say and, or you could say yeah, or cache underscore dot display name match SQL.
And so you have compound criteria here. Is it possible to pass an array equals Windows Audio and then comma SQL?
Oh, like that? No.
Okay. So you really have to have that comma.
You really have to have it
criteria.
there because
of your Boolean operators, it'll confuse it.
yeah, because this is an object. An object has properties, right?
Right.
So if I say, because I would say where display name equals Windows Audio, or I could say program location or server name or whatever, right? This could be any property I wanted to, right? So it doesn't have to both be display name. I could string 30 of those across there, right? parentheses count too. But doing all of that, if I were to just say this, the loop is dumb, right? The loop is just iterating through things. It has no idea. So you're saying, give me the display name of this object, but give me display name of nothing, right? You're not telling it what you want the display name of unless you give it that object. You understand? Does everybody get that? So we're going to go over this one more time before we go to for eaches. So this is a where. It's where object. You can also say where. Did you have something?
No.
Okay. What is this? Anybody?
The current object.
Current iteration variable. Right? It's a built-in variable. There are others. But yes, and it represents the current object in the loop. So if there are 20 of these coming through here, it's going to represent number 1, the number 2, the number 3, and all it does is it looks at this object and it says, does the display name equal Windows Audio, or does the display name of the same object equal or match SQL? And since this is regex, then that's %SQL%, right? It's a star SQL star sort of thing, right? So you're just saying, is SQL anywhere in the name? And here, it's at the beginning of every one of them, but it didn't have to be. I could say distributed and it would pick it up, right? So this is actually a better way to do things than like saying %SQL%. That's it. Just use match. And this is very rich, right? With it being regex, you can put, you can put the beak, you can put whack W, whack D, you can do a full range of regex stuff that you've got involved in there, right? If you want to know if you want to learn regex from scratch, I've got a beautiful video on Midnight about that, and it's literally regex for DBAs, and it's got some really cool stuff in there. Okay. Does everybody get how this works? If you don't, we can't move forward. Well, I can, y'all can. Okay. Yes.
Just one question, does, like display name and Windows Audio, do you have to have the capitals in that right, or can it all be lowercase?
Right. PowerShell is not case sensitive for the commands or the comparisons. I do that for y'all. But no, that whole thing could be lower or upper and it would be fine.
Okay.
C# is case sensitive though. And plenty of other languages are case sensitive. So get used to doing things in a case sensitive manner and you're gonna prevent a lot of issues. Just get used to it, right? Okay, so now we're gonna do something interesting. Yeah, I've already done that. So I'm gonna say get process. I'm gonna pipe that to a for each. Don't forget your curlies. That's the last time I'm gonna type that because that's the alias, %. I love really short commands, right? Sit, stay, speak, really short commands. So, I've got my for each. So what am I gonna do here? What does get process do for me?
Displays the object of
No,
process. Returns the output
it does return the output. What does it return?
of the process object.
It returns a process object. And I'm gonna send that process object through a for each. Now this isn't a display. The for each you usually do to do something, right? In this case, what do I start with inside my curlies? Anybody?
$sign dot.
Yeah, because I need to tell it to do something with an object, right? So, $_dot. and I'm gonna call the kill command on every one of them. I'm gonna step away from my box. The first time I taught this was at the Dallas user group several years ago. And I was recording the session, and I accidentally just hit enter. Killed every process on my box and rebooted it. I learned that lesson. So now I step away from my box while this is up there. I mean, unless you want to watch my box reboot, because it will go through. And for each one of these, it's going to take the current object and kill it. Easy enough, right? Because it's the same loop that we used in the where. It works the same way. Why does it work the same way? They're two different commands, right? One's a where and one's a for each. Why does it work the same way? Because the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? Why have two different sets of syntax? So, but it's the same thing. I'm calling a method, which is a verb, right? And I'm saying kill it.
Yeah. For each.
Yes, for each one, yes. Now, if I wanted to do this properly, so here's what I'm gonna do.
Modify.
I'm gonna make this kill 1, so it will fail if I accidentally hit enter. Okay? So here's how you would probably do something like that. You wanna kill specific processes. Something like that, right? So yes, you would kill a specific process or a specific set of processes where PID is greater than this and less than that, right? That's a very random thing to do. You're gonna take your life in your hands on that one. But you see how we're chaining these things, right? I have done nothing but compare the process name here. Right? So my process object is intact. All I'm doing is comparing it and sending the ones through that meet the criteria. Here, I can only kill it because I still have that process object. And then I go through and I kill each one of those. Now here's where you would fail. If you tried to do something like this, right? If I tried to format table, I'm just doing a star, right? We tell everybody not to do that, but it's great in demos. If I tried to do that, why would that fail?
It's the wrong object.
Huh?
It's the wrong object.
It's the wrong object, right? By piping it to the format table, I've changed it to a table object. It's no longer a service. So you can't kill it. Right? So, what if I want to see the things listed as they're killed? Right? I'm going to see if I can pick another method and show you this. I'm kind of just talking right now. I don't really have an outline. But I'm going to escape that whole thing, and I'll say, what if I wanted to get a list of members? Anybody?
GM.
GM. Except I probably have to pipe it, don't I? There we go. Let's see if there's a member I can choose that'll be a little bit less destructive. How about get type? That's fairly innocuous, right? Okay, so for each one of these, I'm gonna do get type. All right. Do I have anything that will? Oh, beautiful! Look at that. So for each one of these, I'm gonna get type, because I would ordinarily, and this is a where clause. Okay, so do I still have, anyway, I'll just do it from scratch. So I'll say get process, pipe that to a for each. Don't forget your curlies. Start with my object, and I'm gonna say I wanna get process, and I wanna say get type. Perfect. So that's how I would print each one of them. This is gonna be a lot better when we go to SQL, but the process will be the same. So right now, all I wanna do for each one of those is I wanna print the type to the screen. Does everybody see that? That's all I'm doing. So, I printed the type to the screen. You're not actually.
Okay, suppose somebody was particular and they wanted to see what the name of the process was.
Right, we're getting
And
that.
match it with the type, because types are good, but maybe I wanna know which process is that type.
Right. All I was showing you was how to call a method for each one, right? Now, ugh, look at that. It's terrible. Okay, so now we got to talk about command separators. It's the same as it is in so many languages, including SQL. Semicolon. You want to put two commands on the same line? Separate them with a semicolon. So here I'm going to get type, which means I'm going to run that. And I also want to output that to the screen. And I can output the display name. See? So for each one, I'm going to get the type. Did I? Get type display name. Yeah, I should do. Wow, I really need to clear that screen. There we go. Let's see if I get anything. Now,
A process name?
I'm sorry?
Do you want a process instead of display name? Or process?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Now, good catch, because I was trying to figure out what the hell. So, because I thought we were on services still. So this brings up a really good point about PowerShell that will also be aggravating and cause you days of troubleshooting sometimes. If I tell it to display a property that doesn't exist, it'll just give me a null column. It'll do it. It won't say, there's no property in this object with that name. It does that for a very good reason, and that's because you can have complex expressions and build your own columns. Which means that by default, if I say display name when it doesn't exist, it's gonna say, all right, nothing there, but I'm gonna give it to you anyway, right?
But
Especially,
it leaves a space for it, right?
yeah, especially in format table. So if I were to take this whole thing here, let me just get out of that real quick and say, and I'll say, yeah, process name, display name.
There it is. Just
Right? Because, especially in format table, I can build custom expressions. And with any luck, we'll get into that. Okay. But you're gonna do that a lot, especially in SQL, as you're doing things, and we're gonna see that in this hour. You're gonna wanna print something, to the screen, because who wants to hit enter on a long operation, just get that void space blinking cursor that tells you nothing, right? Hey, when's your thing gonna be finished? We're up to 30,000 blinks, right? So you're always gonna print stuff to the screen so that you can watch it. Okay. How much time do I have?
Like 45, hang on, let me double check that. We ended at 40, 45, 30 minutes.
Okay. Who wants to get into some SQL? I know I do. Now, when PowerShell first came out, I was okay with VB script. I'd done quite a bit of ASP and whatnot, so I knew and I did it in DTS, we were talking about that earlier. So I'd done VB script in DTS, and I'd done it at the file system a little bit, but I'd mostly done it in ASP, and I was like, great. Here's another, and I mostly cribbed all my scripts anyway, right? But I said, great, here's another programming language I'm not gonna understand. Because, geez man, they make everything so hard. You wanna see what turned me on to PowerShell and said, this is something truly, truly different. We're gonna learn another command, let, right now, called PS drive. This is the alias. I think it's like get PS drive or get, I forget. Everybody always just uses PS drive though. So I've got PS drive here, and I can see that I don't have the provider installed. Well, I have the provider installed on this box. But you see that there are certain things in here. I've got my C drive. I've got a D drive. That's my programming drive. I've got an E drive. So these are all things for like recovery and all this stuff that come with the box, right? I've got function. We're going to talk about that, I think, in the next session. HKCU? Isn't that a registry key?
It's a high.
How about HKLM? That's registry as well.
Aren't H keys the hives?
Yeah. So if I were to do something, so since this is a list of drives, what if I were to do something like CD HKCU colon? Holy hell. Am I actually in the registry right now?
Yeah.
Yes, you are actually in the registry right now. That's cool. I would love to show you the SQL side of this, but I clearly don't have the provider installed somehow. Could have sworn I did. I'm about to open up Management Studio and see. But this is what made me instantly see that PowerShell is something truly, truly unique. Because things like the registry and SQL, are listed as hard drives. And you can go through them like hard drives. Let me see. So I should have start PowerShell. Okay, I do have the provider installed. I don't know why it's not coming up in the other window. Yep. Yeah, it's not coming up in the other window. But you can see here, let's say that I were to do this then. So I'm on the C drive. And here it is. Now that it's loaded, it's right there. So SQL is a hard drive. Weird. What does that mean?
CD2.
What do we say?
More things change?
The more things change, the more they stay the same, right?
Standardization.
So if I come here, and I wonder now if I could do it over here too, but I got it. Let me see. Yeah, it still isn't listed in here. I'd probably have to stop it and restart it. But anyway, so let me just do this. I'm gonna get to the root. There we go. So, oh, I've already done that. So if I wanna go to, say, the C drive or the D drive, right? I say CD, and what's the name of this drive?
Looks like
SQL
SQL
Server.
Server colon.
What? Now, this automatically took me to databases because that's where I was last time. It even does that in DOS,
Yes, it does.
right? So let's do this. Let's do CD whack. There, now I'm in SQL Server, right? So, I can see what I have listed, right? I can just do a dir object on it, right? So what do I have here? SQL, SQL registration, I've got SIS, I've got X events, I've got AS, I've got data collection, SQL policy, utility. I've got all kinds of things under here that I can do for SQL, right? Let's see, I think the official term for that is badass, right? Because now, I've been using DOS for years. Anybody been using DOS for years, right? Command line? I just used a dir to pull up stuff in SQL, right?
That's so cool.
So, now, what do I wanna do? I wanna go to SQL. So I'll say CD, SQL. What's under here? Anybody know?
Instance name maybe?
Let's do a dir and find out. Oh, the machine name. Okay. So now I can say, cook gun. Anybody know what's under here? Let's do a dir and find out.
Machine name instance.
Funny thing about connecting to SQL
Instance.
through PowerShell, if it's a default instance, you have to say default. You can't just put the machine name in there. So if you had multiple instances, they would all be listed in here. Since there's only one, it's default. So what do I have to do to see my instance?
Change to default.
CD default. And now I can see roles or databases or endpoints or audits or AGs and. Is anybody else wigged out about how cool that is?
First time I saw it, I loved it.
I know, right? So we call this using the provider. Because whenever you like install SQL, the provider used to come automatically, now it doesn't, right? It's a separate download. But if you were to right click in Management Studio on something and then say start PowerShell, it'll say, you don't have the provider loaded. Do you want to download it now? The answer is yes, right? Because it's the only machine I have access to right now. But it could be any machine in my shop, right? So I can connect to remote boxes through the provider. Do it all the time. Done it for years. Script it even, right? And I'm going to show you something cool about that here in a few minutes. So I can connect to any box and any instance I want to from right here, from a single script. So let's go into databases. Lovely.
Yeah, a lot of databases.
Lovely list of data. Yeah, this is my main dev box. So lovely list of databases here. And it gives us name, status, size, available space, recovery model, and so on, right? Are those the only properties databases have?
No.
No.
Okay. What other properties do they have? Tell me.
Dervs, pipe, GM.
Oh, so you're not gonna give me any properties. You're gonna tell me how to find them myself?
Oh, yes.
So I'm gonna try to
The answer is yes. Tell me how to find them myself, right? Do a GM on it, right?
There you go.
All the properties. Look at that. That's a lot of properties, right? And look at all the methods.
Sure.
So all of my adjectives and my verbs are all listed here. That's a lot. Does anybody know, let me see. What does dir do?
Just list.
Stop it.
It returns your object of your directories,
Right. What type of object is it gonna be?
directory objects,
Database object, because I'm under databases,
database objects.
right? Did you see any file last written or folder information here, right? GM always starts with an object type, and I've got a database object type here. So dir is gonna give you back a list of objects. In this case, it's gonna be a database object because that's where I am. That's the type of objects that are at this level, right? If I had more than one object, it'd give me the members for all the objects that are there, right? For all the types of objects. So, let's say I only wanna see the minion databases, anything with the word minion in it. Anybody know how I would do that?
A word clause.
Do a
Pipe
pipe.
it to a where clause? Okay, that's a question mark. So don't forget your curlies.
Yeah, we need the variable for the object type that we're having,
For the current object,
for the current object.
right? Anybody know what that is?
Dollar sign underscore.
There you go. $_ dot. And here, I happen to know that it's name. But if not, then I would look through here and see, oh yeah, there's my name property. Right? Cool.
Are we
So,
using a where clause?
yeah,
The question mark.
Okay.
right? That's my where clause. Where name, and I want to get it where it has minion in the word, in the database name. Match? Okay.
Match, match.
And I'll say, okay, will that do what I want it to do?
Let's try it.
Okay, sure will. Right? Unfortunately, there's way too much data here I don't care about. Right? So what are we gonna do? I still got that.
Pipe it to your format table.
And
Pipe it to a format table,
Pick the columns you want.
and I wanna see name, and let's say, size. There we go. Why these guys don't have a size listed, I don't know. They may be offline, they may be something, right? So, you see how the same thing we did with services and processes and files and folders works on databases.
Bob Baker.
Nothing changed. You could lift and shift this,
hey, Bob.
and all we're doing is changing the name of the property, right? It's that simple. If I want to, say within each database, let's say I want to go to the minion database, I just CD to that database. If I want to see what's under it,
Tables, probably. Or
I get the list of objects that are under it. There's tables right there. CD tables. Directory. I get a list.
So, all the way back to the SQL level, CodeCon is the name of your machine.
Uh-huh.
If you were to network,
The machine name, not the instance name.
correct.
Okay.
So if you wanted to go to another machine, can you CD to a machine that isn't in the directory of machines? So if you go is it going to know what other machines are available within your network? Is there, does it
Right,
do
so.
discovery through SQL Server? Like, how?
Right, so that's not what Browser does, right?
Yeah.
You're starting to get into the OSI model, right? The networking model where you have different layers, right? And so like when I go to another box in Management Studio, how does it find it? It sends it back, and then it makes the call, right? Same thing. It's obscured from PowerShell. It's obscured from C# by the lower layers in the ISO model. Did I do that okay, or do you need more? In other words, Windows and the DNS and the IP system handle all that for you.
Gotcha.
Because whether I'm in Management Studio or Toad or JetBrains or ASP or, right? The lookup mechanism to find a machine on the network is beyond that. It passes that off to the appropriate Windows stuff. The appropriate Windows stuff handles it, and it either finds it or it sends back an error.
Your network administrator needs to tell you how to map to that drive. When you map to that drive, and it connects, and it's although it doesn't look like it's any different than it's on your machine.
Map to what drive?
Whatever drive you're trying to go to, where that other machine is.
Oh, So same way when I say when I try to, like he said, when I try to map a drive, right? If I don't have that specific, where would I have that? Like in my host file? Who wants to keep a host file of 2,000 boxes, right? But it does a DNS lookup. The Windows box does, right? So all of this stuff is configured. Windows handles all that stuff for you and then sends it back. You don't have to know anything about it. You just type in the server name and you can either get to it or you can't.
So I noticed you didn't authenticate to that. Is this using Windows authentication for that?
Right.
If you wanted to use SQL Server.
If you want to use SQL Auth
Is the provider?
through the provider itself, you can't. But if you connect to a box and SMS with SQL creds, then it'll use them when you right click and say start PowerShell.
Thank you.
There is a way to fudge it, but I haven't done it in years. But that would be, it's like creating your own PS drive, and it's just not worth it. Not worth it at all. Are we good? Kinda?
Okay.
Okay. But just ask yourself, if you go to say Windows Explorer and type whack whack server name whack $, right? How does it find the machine? However it is, it finds it the same way here. It's the OSI model, right, of networking, where every layer handles its own thing, and it just, and this will come up later on in the custom sessions, where the other layers don't have to know how the other layers do anything, right? So it's like an SP. If you call SP, say the one that fix users logins, right? That's the one for orphan users, right? What does it do inside of there? I don't have to, right? It does it, gives me a return, period. So is this the second or third session? This is the second session, right?
Right.
Okay, so in the next section, we're gonna talk about this in a lot more detail, okay? But the point is like, it does its job and then passes on, and then it does its job and passes on, and so on, right? So when you do stuff like this, I'm asking for a machine. So it passes it off to the appropriate Windows thing, the appropriate Windows function, right? Doesn't have to know how it does it. It either gets a machine back or it gets an error back, right? And Windows doesn't know how to contact a router, So it passes it on to the next layer in the OSI model, and then that to the next layer, then to the next layer, then to the next layer. And these guys don't have to know how each other do their jobs. I remember in the old days with when the internet was brand new, we had to go in and configure Internet Explorer to use a certain gateway, right? And we had to physically go in there and say, use this gateway, right? Imagine my surprise when all of a sudden you don't have to do that anymore because Windows takes care of all, it automatically knows how to get to Windows and how to do all that stuff, right? It doesn't have to know, it just has to know how to make the call to Windows, and Windows handles everything else. And that's the way it should be. Again, we're gonna talk about that big time in the next session. Okie dokie. So now, we got a list of tables. And let's see, yes, stop it. And let's see, that's a nice big list, huh? And it is, I went too far. Okay, yeah, so these are the properties for the tables, and these are the only properties we have, right? No, not even close. So I'm gonna say, what does dir do here? What does dir do? Anybody? Returns a table object, right? Because I'm under tables, so it returns a table object. And these are all of the methods and properties, a lot of properties for a table that you can have. And I think you all know how to like create a custom list and send it to a format table, right? I don't have to show you that again. How about if I wanted to list the tables where the row count is greater than 1,000? Oh, that's a good one, huh? So let's do that. Let's say dir. I'm going to pipe that to a what? A where. Don't forget your curlies. And the spaces aren't entirely necessary, but I use them anyway. And I'm going to say row count because that's what I'm looking for. Is greater than 1,000. Easy, 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 right? At the end of this, what type of object do I have?
You're gonna have an integer table.
No.
Because you're going to return the row count. Oh, no, you're not returning the row count, you're returning
All table
the
objects.
properties.
Exactly. Because I'm not doing anything to alter that, I'm just filtering on one of the properties, right? But I'm
So
still
you're-
gonna have a table object.
You're returning a table object. Filtered by that property.
Notice how the list finished a lot faster this time? Let's say 10,000. Oh, that's even better. Let's say 100,000. Ooh, even better, right? So, and I can say also, I can add a criteria to this, right? And I can say, and equals, and I'll say DBO. I should get one table back because I'm only wanting that one schema, right? Rows over 100,000. Have we done anything magical? Absolutely. That's brilliant. You can do so much work in so little time. Have we done anything mystical? No. Right? But that's why it's called PowerShell. You can do so much with so little. You want to see something really really cool? I'll show you something really, really cool. I'm gonna take this one table. Actually, let's go one up. I'll do this small list of tables. And I'm gonna pipe that. So for each, don't forget your curlies. I have to start with an object, right? What do you think of that? Not bad, huh? And I get to script it. Now, let's make this something useful. Oh, let's see. There we go. Oh, that's because I forgot a. There we go. I just scripted out those tables. Not bad at all. Now, I'm gonna get rid of this, get rid of that whole thing. Now let's do this. Let's go up a level. I can list all my SPs. I've got 2 or 3 in here. There we go. Now let's change the criteria a little bit, because obviously an SP doesn't have the same members that a table does, right? An SP can't have a row count, right? So let's just do this then. Let's say instead of row count greater than 1,000, let's say, actually, okay, I'm gonna run this first and it's gonna fail, but I'm only gonna do that to keep from having to type the whole line again. Okay. So now let's say where schema equals, and let's say DBO. There we go, perfect. So now, let's do a GM on this guy. And the reason that failed is because most of, if not every one of those SPs is encrypted. So let's say where is encrypted equals 0. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna say where schema is DBO, absolutely. And remember, you have to give it an object. Dot is encrypted equals, now you could say 0, or you could use the built-in variable false. Either one will work. And there we go. And I've put it in the tables file. And it overwrote that file by default. But here I've got the SPs as well. So, if I wanted to script out all the SPs, I would take away the where clause, right? But if you look, get rid of this guy again. When I was doing services and processes, especially processes on this one, right? I ran kill, right? I give the object dot or method, right? I ran kill, here I'm running script. Does it change, does that mean the syntax has changed? Just because I'm calling a different method? No. If I wanted to delete a file, I would do a GM on the file, and I would see what the I would see what the delete command was, and I could call the dot. We'll say delete, right? But nothing changes. I script databases. I script tables. I script functions. I script logins. I script jobs with the exact same piece of code that I do websites and emails and office documents and folders and all of that stuff and registry keys, right? All of that stuff works the exact same way. No matter where you are, you call the methods and the properties the exact same way. Yes?
That's actually time.
Is it really?
I'm keeping track.
Wow, that's time. We're gonna get into functions and contractual programming next.
After lunch.
After lunch.
Yes.
After lunch. Wow, the day just like.
It really flies, absolutely.
Does anybody have any questions on this? I'd like to think that I've pounded it enough that you won't forget. Like I said, we're gonna go a little bit slower and really pound in the basics. Because I wanna teach, I don't wanna like come up here and just show off.
Oh, you can do both.
Yeah, I can do both. All right.